again, everyone. Welcome to day 2. We are so glad to be here with you, and we hope you're all tuning in. We're going to give people just a second to get themselves clicked in on Facebook there. Make sure you can get your messages in there, and we'll hopefully see them all. For those of you who are joining us today and didn't join us yesterday, I'm Linda Easthouse, and my co-teacher, partner, co-coach, however we want. I don't know what we call ourselves. We just work together. We have fun together. Cheryl Hanna. We're from Reclaim Your Life. Yeah, partner in crime. That's a good one. We're from Reclaim Your Life Coaching, and we're delighted to be doing this masterclass. So we're going to just recap quickly what we did yesterday for those of you who may be coming in new. And if you haven't had a chance to get signed up on the website to get the email sent to you, you'll want to do that, because when you get the email, you'll get day 1's replay as well as the homework for day 1. So you'll be able to catch up and do that. So please make sure you've done that if you haven't, and go back and watch the video. Yesterday, we talked all about identifying your core values and the difference between a belief and a value. And we looked at all the things related to what's driving your behavior, who's driving your behavior. And that in most cases, a lot of the things that we believe, we learn from others. We were taught by our family, by our community, by our school, by our culture, and they're not really our own beliefs and values. And at some point in our lives, we need to examine those and look at them. And often we don't even really know what our beliefs are. We think we do. We say we believe this, but then our actions don't follow it up. So if you're really looking for the driving values and who's driving your bus, you have to look not at the ones that you can think about, but the ones that show up in your actions. And as we said yesterday, if you really want to know what a person believes, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And you apply that to yourself. Don't listen to what you say to yourself, because most of us are really good at telling us what we think we want to hear. And we need to observe what it is we actually do that then tells us what our beliefs might be. So that's just a little recap from yesterday. I hope you did your homework assignment, because that would have helped you apply that into your own life, where you had to take a belief that you have, the action that you actually do, even if it isn't in sync with your belief, identify the value that you were trying to get at, and what is the emotional driver, the unconscious action, the trauma, the whatever that prevents you from doing what you want to do. And a number of you have posted that homework. Some of you sent it to me privately because you didn't want to post it. That's great. I'm fine with that. Message it to either one of us. That's cool. If you don't want to post it publicly, I understand that. This can be really deep personal stuff, and we want you to go deep and personal. So if you prefer to message us, we're very open to that. Today, we're moving on to self-integrity. So, Cheryl, do you want to tell us all about self-integrity here?
Okay, well, when it comes to beliefs and values, most of us live unexamined lives. And we've never been trained or told or taught. I mean, I never was, and I don't know anybody else who's trained to think about what are your values in a very conscious way. And self-integrity is when your beliefs and your values are in line with one another. So what you're saying and what you're doing actually match up. So it's about having your body, mind, and soul working together towards the same purpose. So we're going to define beliefs and values a little bit more here. A belief, this is the dictionary definition, is a state or habit of mind or thinking pattern in which trust or confidence is placed in some person, thing, institution, like the government or church, or political or cultural group. These are unquestioned standards that you use for interpreting the world. For example, you might have the belief that all men are evil. And that belief is not necessarily, it's one that you have here, but up here in your head, you know that not all men are evil, because you've run across good people in your life who happen to be male. But because of some negative trauma that happened to you in your past, you just as a default position mistrust all men and think that they're evil. And then that belief system colors how you interact with men. So you have a conflict between reality and what you've experienced, and that causes stress.
From our beliefs, we also then have to look at our values, and they're not the same thing. Our values are a little bit different than our beliefs. Our beliefs are based on our experience and what we've been taught. Our values come in as our core concepts and heart patterns of what we consider good or bad. Now, this again is a dictionary definition at the beginning here. Values are the core concepts and heart patterns of what we consider good or bad, right or wrong, or what is worthy of sacrifice. Our values are central to our self-image. It's what makes us who we are. They're the ethical standards that express your sense of right and wrong. So you can see how beliefs are a little different than values. Let's take a little example of that. And this is fairly common in the work world. For example, most people would say it's wrong to steal from a store. But on the other hand, they might take a handful or a box of pens home from the office. After all, they earned them. They worked hard and they don't get paid well enough. It's part of the job. I need to work at home, so of course I can take them home. This is a conflict between the belief, I am not a thief, and the value, I deserve to be paid for my work and I deserve to have what I need to do my work with. And so we end up with this conflict between our beliefs and our values. And this conflict often is accompanied by guilt. It's often accompanied by a sense of either entitlement or I have to do it in secret and I have to get away with it because I need it, but I can't, I don't want to get caught. So there's this guilt, entitlement back and forth because we have a conflict between our belief and our values. And the thing that is really important for us in this particular program is that your values change at any given moment in your life. We all had a set of values as a child and as young adults, and now as older adults, as moving into more maturity, those values are going to change. And often we aren't aware that we're changing them. And some values will stay the same, and some values will change according to our situation. Let me give you a little example from myself. For many years, I worked in an academic setting. And so for me, one of my values, a very high value, was knowledge. And it still is. I highly value knowledge. And I spend a lot of time pursuing it and researching and reading and studying and writing. And knowledge is important to me. Success is another value to me. I have always wanted to, as my husband says, if you can't win, you don't want to play. Well, not quite that bad, but maybe with certain games. And in work, success is really important to me. I want to be seen as successful in my field, successful in what I'm doing, in whatever career I'm in. And I've gone through several different careers. And so I have devoted a lot of time to my careers and to my work because success is a high value to me. But these values are not shared by everyone. I have many friends who are far less driven by success than I am, and yet they also lead very satisfying, happy lives because their value happens to be on something else that suits them. Mm-hmm. And this is where we want to kind of look at how our values change over time. Many of us are not really aware of even examining our values. I probably couldn't have told you that knowledge and success were two of my key values until I worked on that a few years ago. I went through probably 30 years of work without recognizing that those were really what were driving what I was doing. And usually our values go unchallenged and unexamined until a tragedy strikes or until life throws you a curveball. Some significant life event tends to upend you. Mm-hmm. And at that point, we reevaluate what's important to us. And for many of the women who are in this program, and for many of the men who are attending here, that's really what's driving their attendance, is they're in one of those significant life events. Maybe it's that your kids have just left home and suddenly your role as a mom and caretaker, a home taker, and all of the things that you did to support your children suddenly aren't there because, well, they've gone off to university, or they've gotten married, or they've gotten a job and moved away. They're doing great. You did a fabulous job raising them, but they're gone. And now it's like, well, who am I now? What do I do? Or you've had a probably, many cases, highly successful career, and yet that career may have been ended by COVID, or you may have chosen to retire, or you may have been let go for whatever reason, downsizing, restructuring. All kinds of things happen to people, and suddenly everything they've built their life around is gone. And that's the point at which they begin to evaluate what's important to me. What do I care about? What do I want to do? And that's the values that we're talking about. One of the English poets, William Blake, said something that I absolutely love that helps me remember that being flexible and making changes and allowing things to drop off and take on new ones is a natural process. William Blake said, "The man who never alters his opinion is like standing water and breeds reptiles of the mind." Yes, you don't want to be standing water, and you don't want to be breeding reptiles of the mind. Believe me, those things do not help your brain any. So, re-examining,
they show up at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, they do tend to show up at 2 in the morning, don't they? So this change of allowing ourselves to change our values, change our beliefs, is a good process, not a bad one. It may be a hard one, but it's a good process. And we really want to encourage people to do that. And I know for me that when I started 15 years ago in natural bioenergetics, originally as a client and then as a student, and over the years as a teacher, my values and my beliefs have changed significantly. I know that when I first started this, I didn't know it then, but I know it in looking back now. One of my values throughout the teenage and 20s and 30s was that I wanted to be liked. I needed to be accepted. I wanted to be recognized. I needed people to like me. Mm-hmm. And as much as I had a rebel streak in me, I had a people-pleasing streak in me too. And I have come through these years of working in natural bioenergetics and through this coaching process to recognize I don't need those anymore. And there are ways to let go of them. There are ways to get rid of them. There are ways to allow yourself to fill what you do want in, and those things just kind of get pushed out and you don't need them anymore. Now, I'm sure.
Just to add to what you're saying, both Linda and I have had, of course, experience with natural bioenergetics, which helps us to work through some of the differences that we've perceived in our values and our beliefs. And one of the things that helped to push that along even faster was the fact that both of us have coaching added into the mix. We both have our own coaches that help to bring some of the stuff up to the surface so we could look at it. And then we went back to natural bioenergetics to fix the issue at the causal site.
Exactly. And there's always this dance between what you're thinking about and how you think it through and act on it consciously, and what's going on subconsciously in your gut and in your heart. And natural bioenergetics is amazing at getting at the root of that stuff in your subconscious and in your heart, and then helping you bring it up into the conscious in a way that you can deal with it and make choices and do things differently, because you're no longer sabotaged by all that subconscious stuff that is in conflict with what you think you want. And what I wanted to be as a person, even 10 or 15 years ago, compared to what I want to be now, is completely different. I am no longer the same person. And people who knew me 20 or 30 years ago wouldn't even recognize who I am now, because it's made that significant of a change in my life. And where I want to be, who I want to become, what I want to do, what do I want to achieve in life, has changed so tremendously, because I have spent the time working through the process of figuring out what are my values, what are my beliefs, what do I really want? And I realized that what I wanted back then wasn't what I really wanted. It was just what I could see at that point. It was what my limited vision could accept at that point. And if I got to that point, I could see a little further. And I got to that point, and I could see a little further. And over time, and I'm quite sure I'm not done yet. We'll keep working on it. And that the beauty of the system is you just peel away the layers and peel away the layers and peel away the layers until the real you comes out in its beauty and ability to be and do what you really want to be and do. And so, yes, it is change. Yes, it is hard. Yes, some people won't like you anymore. Some people who are used to you being their servant and you being their whenever they rescuer, you being their codependent, you being their whatever, are not going to like it when you stop doing that. And that's okay. But if the conflict in yourself has been changed, it will be okay that they don't like it. And it's really about ironing out all those conflicts inside you. And I'm sure some of you are going, well, that all sounds good, but how on earth do we do this? Well, remember that a lot of what you believe is not really what you believe. It's what you were taught as a child, what you were taught by your community, by your family, by your faith tradition, etc. You absorbed it through your upbringing and community. You absorbed it through the workplace that you spent many years in. You absorbed it through your schooling. And it's time to simply ask yourself, what do you want from life? Mm-hmm. And explore your wants and desires in depth. And it's not about what somebody else needs you to be or wants you to be or expects you to be. It's what do you really want to do? And here's how I would go about it. And this is one of the exercises you'll do if you join the coaching program. And we'll do this in depth and with some personal feedback and give you a lot more help on doing it. But this is basically the process. You list out what's important to you. What do you want from life and how do you want to live? You list out what you think you're supposed to want and what other people who are important to you want for you. So you've got 3 lists: what you want, what you think you're supposed to want, and what other people who are important to you want for you. So you get these 3 lists of what's important. And then you start looking for discrepancies. You look at discrepancies between what you want and what society or family or community wants for you. And you look at discrepancies between what you want and where you actually are. And that's the real key. When we get to the point where what matters is the discrepancies between what you want and where you actually are, then we can build that plan to get you there. But you kind of have to go through peeling off the layers of recognizing that a lot of what you want is what others want for you, or others force on you, or what society has stated you should be or do. And as you peel away all those layers, you'll begin to find out that underneath there's actually something that you as a person want. And this is really the process of figuring out what your values are. And we will work through this. We spent a whole month on this in the coaching program. So don't expect that you're going to run through that little list in a hurry, because it's not that simple, but that's the core of what has to happen. Doing this little exercise will help you determine if you are largely living out your own values, or if you are living out the values and desires and things of others who either impose them on you or put that expectation on you, and you want to please and be peaceful with them and do what they want because you trust them. They're a leader, because you believe they're speaking into your life, but there may be a conflict there. And if you act differently than you believe you should, why? Why are you not acting out what you believe? And what's stopping you from acting out the way you want to act? What's stopping you from acting the beliefs that you actually want to have? So we're going to look a little bit more at that in the energy exercise we're going to do in just a minute. But that's really a big question that you want to ponder. What's stopping you from acting that way?
Another thing that contributes to our belief system is our actual experiences. And those those experiences can really color how you see your life. So it's real, you know, when you're looking at what you're believing and what you think your values are, you have to take into account, and the fact that things change over time is because, you know, we don't arrive on the planet with a manual that tells us how to live and lays it all out for us. We kind of have to figure it out by trial and error, and sometimes through other people's trial and error as they deal with us. And those experiences can have the ability to really change how you view your life. And what may have worked for you when you were younger, it doesn't necessarily fit when you're older, or it doesn't fit in all situations, but you don't really know how to change that. So part of the exercises that we're going to do and part of the energy work that we're going to do is going to help you to dig down in, figure out what those things are, and then neutralize them so that they're not running your life for you anymore. In other words, you will be able to consciously choose as opposed to subconsciously be driven to the value and the belief that you want to live out in your life. Now, a lot of times we'll have a conflict between our values and our beliefs. So going back to Linda's example of working in a place and you would never take money out of the till, but you would take home pens from the office or paper clips or whatever. You might have a value that I am an honest person, but your action of taking home pens that you didn't buy, that were bought by the company for use in the company, is in conflict with that picture that you have of yourself being an honest person. So one of the ways that we can distinguish between or figure out what this, that there's actually a conflict there, is when you have to justify or rationalize or excuse your behavior. So, you know, if I'm walking down the street and I see a little kid crossing the road and they're going along and everything's safe, but all of a sudden they trip and fall flat on their face and there is a truck barreling down the road at them and there's not time for them to get up and get out of the way. If I run out into the road and scoop the child up and bring them to safety, and people say to me, "Oh, what a wonderful act you did," I don't say to them, "I just got up on the right side of the bed today." Good behavior, good values, good ethics, they don't need a rationalization. They don't need an excuse. They are just good, and we all know what they are. But if I have to justify my behavior by saying to myself, well, I really worked hard and I deserve these pens, and plus I don't have enough money to go out and buy my own, I know that I have a conflict there between what is ethical and what I think my value is in saying that I'm an honest person and what I'm actually doing. So removing and identifying and then removing some of those unconscious drivers that interfere with you living your values enables you to be congruent in your life. So another one that's common for a lot of women and one that I struggled with a lot is saying that I wanted to lose weight. Everybody knows that when you're overweight and you're obese or whatever, it's not healthy. You're shortening your life. Well, I have that, I'd like to lose weight and I'd like to be a healthy. And then then I sit down at night and I'm watching TV and I'm eating popcorn and chips and, whatever, piece of chocolate. And so my behavior was not lining up with what I said my stated value was, which was to be healthy. So what I had to do was go in and identify, well, why am I self-sabotaging this area? Is it just that I just want to eat? Is it just because I'm bored? Am I afraid? This is really weird, but Linda and I were talking about this one day, and I said to her, I had this feeling, it made no sense at all, but I felt like if I lost weight and went down in size, that somehow or other my presence was disappearing. It was like my size, being overweight and really large, meant that I was here. And it meant that I had an impact where I was going. I had space. And for some reason, losing that weight made me feel like I was of no account. I have no idea how that got installed, but that was one of the things that I had to deal with. So that's an example of a conflict between my stated value and my actual belief, which made no sense at all, but it was there and operating very strongly.
And that's the thing, is often they don't make any sense. It's something that somewhere got lodged in your brain or in your heart or in your subconscious at some level, and we don't even remember the incident or the environment in which it happened or the experience that it comes from, but that frequency, that fear, that misbelief is stuck there, and it will sabotage in a way that is just unbelievable. And we are usually not aware of it. And we call these subconscious drivers because we can't consciously think of them. If somebody hadn't pointed out that to Cheryl, it probably would never come up in her own awareness. And that's part of what this coaching program is all about, is we build community where we can talk to each other, where we have input, where we as coaches will every day be in that group responding and helping you talk through these things and see through these things. And we'll do the energy work to bring them up to the surface where you can see them. But it's subconscious drivers really come from all of the emotions that you push down and don't want to deal with until they're so far down you don't even know they're there anymore. It from the ideas and comments of things that people say to you that, well, you don't really want to believe them, but they struck a chord somewhere. They stuck on a hook somewhere, and they are in there. And you internalize them and ignored them until you can't see them anymore. And we are all human, and we all do and have lots of those. Some of us more than others, but everybody has them. Let me just give you an example here. How many times have you known you were going into a difficult conversation? So in your head, you planned this whole conversation out. You worked out how you were going to approach it so that you could stay calm and say what you needed to say and do all the proper things. You know how to talk properly. You know how to communicate. You're skilled in your work, and you plan out, you're going to say all these things in this way, which, inoffensive ways. And if they bring up this, you're going to respond that way. And if they say this, you're going to respond that way. And you have this whole conversation planned in your head, and you practice it all out. And you go into the conversation, and some word they say, some look on their face, some whatever, and it all goes completely out the window, and none of what you planned shows up. You go into fight or flight, or you freeze, or you go into, what's the other F, Cheryl? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You go into pleasing and being nice because you don't want to upset anybody. So you get on their nice side again because by being, soft and quiet and submissive, and the conversation did not go the way you wanted it to go. You did not achieve what you wanted to achieve because there were subconscious drivers, emotions stuck down inside that sabotaged everything that your conscious mind planned. And we've all had that experience, some of us more often than others, but everybody's had at least some. And what do we do to solve that? How do we deal with that? Well, that's what this whole program is going to address, but it's also what the exercise for today is going to address. You can't see your blind spots, but you can figure out how to work with them. You can get them to show up in non-threatening ways. And that's what this exercise is all about today. So part of what we do is to find these blind spots, these sabotaging emotions, these sabotaging thoughts that we have, these things that just happen out of nowhere, which we feel like we have no control over. We can look at our bodies and find, where is the pain? Where is the tension? Where is the stress? Where are the physical reactions? All of those things are trying to get your attention. So when you're planning this conversation in your head and you think, oh, but they're going to say this, watch for where in your body something tightens up, or something shrinks back, or something brings up an emotion. Even just thinking about it, pre-conversation, your body will give you the clues to tell you where you're sabotaging. And your body's trying to get your attention. Your body's trying to tell you where to work. And so as we learn to listen to our bodies, to read our bodies, to actually use some energy techniques to be able to accurately identify what it is our body's trying to tell us, then we know what we're dealing with and we can work on it appropriately. And today's exercise will give you one way to work on it. There are many ways that you'll learn, but today's is one of them. The other thing you can do is listen to your self-talk. Yes, the body will come up physically, but your self-talk, the tapes you run in your head, the thoughts you run in your head, the conversations you have with yourself, they really betray your real beliefs about yourself and about others. So after you've had this conversation, you've got it all planned in your head, and then you go to do something else and there's these little thoughts show up. Well, what about this? What about that? And you know, are you really good enough to do this? Are you going to be able to stand? Are you going to be able to stay calm? All those thoughts that show up, that's your self-talk identifying for you where the subconscious drivers are. Pay attention to them, make note of them. And that's what's going to really help you get down to the core of what the issues are. So we talked before about finding the discrepancies between what you believe and what you do. Well, as you can see, it's probably not a really simple process, but there are steps that we can use to do it. And many times these discrepancies are based on things that you were told or experienced, and then a story was put onto it, and that story then is in conflict with how you really feel about it. And that conflict leads you to a conflict between what you do and what you want to do. So we find those conflicts by identifying our stressful thoughts, and then we figure out what the conflicting pattern is, and then we use an energy technique to change it.
I like to tell people that our life is a lot like an iceberg. You've probably seen those graphics where they show you that only 10% of the iceberg is what's sticking above the water, and there's 90% of it is this massive thing that's under the water. And in some ways you can compare that to the difference between your conscious living and your subconscious living. So our conscious living is the 10% that you see above the water, and the subconscious drivers are the 90% that are below the water, and they are directing your behavior, and you don't understand maybe sometimes why you're doing what you're doing because it's below your level of consciousness. So when you join our coaching program, you're going to learn a number of different ways to address these subconscious drivers and the conflicts that they create. We will help you identify what's below your surface. And the belief system eliminator, or I like to call it a BS eliminator, that you're going to learn right now is just one of the energy balancing techniques that you'll learn in more depth in our program. So what it does is it helps you to rapidly identify and remove places where in your head you're saying one thing, but your heart doesn't believe it and won't put it into action. Or it might even be a really good thing that you should be believing, but you can't get yourself to act on it. So Linda, why don't you explain to us what the BSE looks like?
Okay. The belief system elimination is about taking the stress off of a belief. We're not actually eliminating the belief. We're eliminating the stress from that belief so that it no longer triggers you into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. It allows you to then walk your way through it in a different way. And it's really, really simple. Dr. Jimmy Scott figured this out quite a few years ago. We've been using it for years and years, and it's absolutely amazing. We're going to give you the really short version on how it works and what it does today, because you'll learn more in depth later. But basically, you identify a thought or a belief that stresses you. And that can be a positive belief, as Cheryl said, or a negative belief. So for instance, you might have a belief, I'll never be successful. And of course, that would stress you. But that belief drives a lot of behavior and makes you do things you don't want to do and makes you sabotage yourself. Because if your subconscious really believes something, it's going to make you do whatever it takes to make that show up in your life. Mm-hmm. That's how beliefs work. That's why we use things like affirmations to try and tell ourselves what we want to believe so that it works better. The problem is affirmations work on a conscious level. And unless you do the subconscious level to take the stress off of it, you're not going to be able to bring it up in the same way. So let's take that as the example. I can never be successful. On the other hand, you might be equally stressed by I am successful. Now, I know it's sometimes hard to get your mind around how can I am successful be stressful. You'd be surprised how many people are highly stressed by that and never become successful because they're too stressed by it. And so they sabotage themselves every time they get near it. And I know I had that belief. Cheryl had it. Cheryl, go ahead and explain how it affected you.
Well, I didn't like being a failure, but at least I knew how to do it. Being a success was uncharted territory, and everybody has a fear of the unknown. So even though I wanted to be successful, I was afraid of it because I didn't know if I could do it, and I didn't know what it felt like. And even though I didn't like being a failure, in my eyes anyways, I knew how to do it. I wasn't happy with it, but I knew how to do it.
And so, that's often the way we live our lives. It's better the known, even if it's bad, than the unknown, which might actually be better, but it's unknown. And so we're too afraid to go there. And that fear and stress gets in the way and we never get there. So either side of that equation can be equally stressful. And for many people, both sides are equally stressful. And so they're just stuck and get nowhere. They're fully bought into the I can't be successful, and they're fully stressed out by I am successful, and then of course they're not going to be successful. They're going to be spectacular at being unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And
look like they're trying to succeed at the same time.
Right. And look like that's the key. They're going to look like they're trying to succeed. They're going to put in the effort. They're going to put in the work. They're going to spin their wheels for the public. They're going to say all the right things, but then they're not going to actually do it. And that's where a lot of procrastination comes from. Just in case you didn't know, the fact that you can be stressed on the positive and the negative of the same thing often leads to procrastination. But that's another topic. We'll get to that one. So what do we do with these thoughts that are so difficult to deal with? Well, we have a little technique called the BS Eliminator, or Belief System Eliminator. Extremely simple. You're going to take your hairline, for those of you who still have one, and if your hairline has moved over the years, you're going to use what your original hairline was. You're going to take right in the middle, up from your nose, at the hairline. You're just going to do little pinches. One finger in the hair, one finger below the hair, meeting at the hairline. And I don't want you to take one finger and hold it still and then move the other one to it. I want you to actually move both fingers together and meet at the hairline. So you're going to do that. That's one thing. Then at the back of your head, the skull comes up with a big dip up the back here where the spine and the skull come together. Right at the top of that where the bone is there and it's soft underneath of it, right where that soft hits the bone, you're going to do the same thing, only horizontally, sideways. So you're going to take about 3/4 of an inch between your fingers and just pinch there like that. Now the trick is you have to be coordinated and do them both at the same time. So you're doing this one and this one at the same time. And here's where we get really difficult. Now you have to say your belief out loud at the same time. So if your belief is, I am successful, I am successful, I am successful, I am successful, I am successful. And at some point, usually 10, 15, 20 seconds of doing that, you'll get a yawn or a sigh or some indication that the energy shifted, or you'll just feel different. And then you know it's done. And what
Don't be surprised too if you notice an emotion rising up as you're doing this. I remember one time when I was working with a girl, she had to do a BSC around I am ugly. She went, really? And so she started to do it. And as soon as she started doing it, she burst into tears. But I encouraged her to keep going. And eventually that sorrow that she was feeling around that went away. And she felt completely indifferent to that sentence after she was done.
Mm-hmm. And you'll often find the voice changes. When people first start saying something, or when you first start saying, you won't really want to say it very loud, and it's just kind of And as you say it, you really need to say it like you mean it. And you do have to say it out loud. It doesn't work if you say it in your head. It has to come out of your mouth so that your ears can hear it, because the ears are part of the processing. If your ears can't hear it, it's not going to work. So you actually have to say it out loud. So you can go in a quiet room or lock yourself in the bathroom or do whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Don't care. Go do it out in the forest if you please. But you do have to say it out loud and say it like you mean it. Don't just say it a little bit like this. You actually have to say it. Put some oomph into it.
I am a failure. I am a failure. I am a failure.
Exactly. And whether it is a negative belief that you want to change or a positive belief that you want to install, either one of them, if because they're causing you stress, need this process. And what's going on is you have a meridian line that runs from the tip of your tailbone up over the back of your spine, down right through to your upper lip here. And of course, this is on that line and this is on that line. So you're actually massaging or stimulating two of the acupoints. And those two acupoints are connecting brain parts inside to release the stress. And so it's the physical actually doing this is what you're doing is you're telling this point of the brain, which is part of your executive cortex up here, to connect into this part of the brain back here, which is your limbic, where all your emotions are stored, and connect the two and process it so that the experience comes up to light and to the truth and can sort itself out between them. And so what you're doing is connecting your executive cortex to your limbic brain at the back in order to allow congruence in the way your brain processes that thought. And it simply removes the stress off of it, takes you out of fight or flight, and lets you think about it differently. So the next time you have that thought, you won't go into fight or flight. You won't get all stressed out. You'll be able to think it through differently and act differently. And so that's why we're doing this. So we did the I am successful, but you would do the same thing if that's how you feel with I'll never be a success. I'll never be a success. Pinching horizontally at the back, vertically at the front, saying it out loud. I'll never be a success. 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 I'll never. Oh, I guess I actually probably needed that one. I got a good energy shift off of that. Wow. Cool. I love it.
And just notice, you may yawn or you may sigh, but just notice in your body too, you may feel a difference in release of tension in your body after you've done it. One of the things we want to help people connect with is a lot of us live up here in our head, and we live up here and we shut off the rest of our body. We don't really pay attention to what's going on inside. And what we want to do is help you connect your head and heart together and the rest of your system so that you can notice when you're going into places where you notice you know that you're having stress, and you can take action afterwards to deal with it.
Now, one caution with this, we recommend that you do not do more than 3 in a day. Mm-hmm. So if you might come up with a whole bunch of your sentences, don't just sit there and do them all at once. You will literally send your brain into a whirlwind, and you will have a headache like you don't want. Believe me, I know, because I tried it just to see what would happen, because Dr. Scott said don't do more than 3 or 4 in a day. And I thought, I'm strong. I got lots of energy. I'm good at this. Let me see what I can, let's see how many it takes before it bothers me. So I did like 6 in one day. I spent the next day in bed with a headache. I could hardly move my head, and I could feel stuff going around in there. And I could actually feel heat off the top of my head because my brain was working so hard. It's like, please don't do that. Take my experience and believe me, 3 a day is plenty. If you have a whole long list, do 3 now, and maybe wait a day or 2 and do 3 again, and wait a day or 2 and do 3 again. Don't fry your brain unnecessarily, because they really do something on the brain processing in there. And I highly recommend you learn from my experience and don't do it. In your homework for today, there is a page like this. You'll get it in your email tomorrow, of a bunch of sentences that are very common ones for this correction. And so one of the ways you can deal with this is simply read down the list and see which ones jump off the page at you. Anything that jumps off the page at you is probably a good one for you to do. If you do one and it isn't really a problem for you, nothing will happen. You'll be fine. You won't feel a yawn or a shift, and nothing will, it can't do you any harm. If you need it, it'll correct it. It'll take the stress off of it, and it'll be awesome. And often we have very sort of similar beliefs. So you might say it one way, and then a few days later, almost the same, but a little bit different. And then maybe a little bit different another time, because we tend to have sort of layers of problems around the same issues. So if the same one comes up, almost the same, but a little bit different, we'll just go ahead and do it too. It won't hurt anything. And that way you'll pick up anything that you may have missed. So you're going to do this for generally be 10 and 20 seconds. It might be 30 seconds. I think the longest one I've ever seen was a minute. But generally, you simply do it until you yawn or sigh. For most people, it's 10 to 20 seconds. The one that was a minute was somebody who had a really significant stress issue around something that they were in complete denial about. But they knew it was a problem, but when the words came up, it was like, I don't do that. And I go, well, your body tested for it. Let's just try it and see what happens. We were doing it and doing it and doing it. And all of a sudden, it was like his eyes got big, and it was like, I have a problem with this. This is bad. Well, just keep going. You'll get through this. Just keep doing it. And at the end, it just all calmed down. It was great. A big yawn. And then he told me the story around it. And he goes, I had completely forgotten about that event in my childhood, but you're right. That has sabotaged my whole adult life. So don't be surprised when you have those kinds of things. It just, whatever it is, just do it until you get a response or until you're tired of doing it, and you'll be good. But don't give up too soon.
You'll be very surprised at what a difference it'll make in your life that something so simple as pinching your head in two places will create for you in terms of change. I mean, when you have a system that's been a belief that's been embedded in your system and has been ruining your life for so long, and then 20 seconds of this helps you to drop it out of the system and allows you to look at it completely different, that is amazing. And that's only one of the techniques that you're going to learn in the coaching program.
And we'll help you figure out exactly which are the core beliefs that are really sabotaging you. We have ways to do that. So Cheryl, tell us about the homework.
So for homework, you're going to get an email, and it's going to contain this belief system eliminator. And there's going to be another sheet. I think you had a picture of it there with little blocks in it, where you're going to identify things that you think you believe. And I don't have it printed out in front of me, Linda, so I don't see everything that's on there.
Okay. You're going to choose 2 or 3 items off of this list. Pick ones that pop off the page, or ones that bother you, or ones that are like tapes that run in your head that, comments you make to yourself all the time. And for each one of them, you're going to write down what the conflict in your life is around that. What you want out of it and what you actually do out of it. So it's a little bit like yesterday's, but here now you've identified the stressful thought. You're going to remove it using this, get rid of the thought, get the stress off of the thought, and then you're going to kind of bring it up into consciousness and look at what's the conflict that this was causing me? What is it in my belief and my action that has been out of whack because of this stress on this particular thought? So you're going to go through and figure out what's your stressful thought. For example, nobody loves me. The conflict is I want a close relationship with my family, but in actual fact, I push them away and don't want to talk to them. But that stems out of the stressful thought that nobody loves me. Well, of course, if nobody loves you, then you can't have a good relationship with your family, because you're going to be nasty to them to prove the fact that nobody loves you.
And the other thing about that type of belief is that if you think nobody loves you, even when they're showing you love, you won't recognize it.
And you'll see it differently after you do this correction. That's the amazing thing.
Yeah.
Another one, I never have enough, or I never had enough growing up. I never have enough, whichever way it comes up for you. Some people do it one way, some people do it the other. So the conflict is my money is always hard earned. I work really hard to get my money, but it's never enough. No matter how hard I work, I can't work enough to get what I need. And yet on the other hand, you go out and spend your hard earned money on frivolous trinkets and things that you don't really need. And you don't use your money well, so of course you never have enough because you waste it. And there's so many of us who that I never have enough belief system drives the workaholic attitude and the spend it all terribly because, well, you never have enough. So no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you make, you have to waste it so you don't have enough. And that's that crazy loop that stress does to us, that this correction breaks the vicious circle. It intervenes the vicious circle and allows you to change how you act and what you believe and what you do. So that's your homework. And please be sure that you post as much of it as you feel comfortable in the thread in the group. If you're going to you need to join the group if you're not in the group. In the group, there is a homework thread for each day. Day one's homework thread is there. Please go post what you feel comfortable there. And for these, maybe post some of the thoughts that you did or some of the ways that you sabotage yourself. Whatever comes out of this exercise for you, please post there to share with each other in the group.
And don't forget, we have a free course available that we're going to give away. But that means that you have to take part, you have to contribute, you have to share, invite your friends in. Everybody who does that, the more that you share, the more you spread the word, well, the better your chances are of winning that free course, 6-month course.
And you have to do all your homework. Yes. And you have to either post it or message it to us so that we know you've done it. And we're actually keeping track of that. So yep. If you're interested in winning that free course, we would love to have you. I think you can see there's a lot of value coming up in that course, and we hope that you have learned some really useful things today. So go back and look at this list that comes in your homework. You will get the replay. You can either look at it through Facebook. It'll be posted there. You'll get a replay link in your email, and there is a web page that'll take you to where you can download the homework as PDFs. You can print them out if you want to, or you can just, read them off the screen and write them into a journal or a piece of paper or whatever you want to record them on. If you want to put them on if you want to print it out and use it, great. If you want to use it just as a prompt, feel free to do that too. So tomorrow,
if you're watching this because somebody shared it with you, please join the group and get in on the contest because you can win too.
Exactly. And unless you're on the email list, we won't have any way to notify you that you won the contest. So you will want to sign up so you get the emails where you get your homework and you get the replay links, and that is the names of the people who are on that list with their emails, plus have shared it because we can see who shares, and have invited friends. We can see who's invited, because Facebook shows you all that stuff. It's there for everybody to see. There's no hiding on Facebook. And you have participated in the homework and posted things or messaged us. Those will be the ones who will be entered into a hat and drawn for the free contest. So we would love to have one of you get that. So please do those. Tomorrow, we're going to look at how to identify the change that you want to see. We've talked about all the conflicts. We've talked about coming into integrity with yourself, getting rid of these stresses that keep you in conflict. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how do you actually get started on changing the things you want to change and moving forward into what you want to move into, and identifying what it is you actually do want. Because we spent a lot of time talking about what you don't want and all the conflicts you've got inside you. Now we want to look at where you're going. And don't forget, yesterday you learned the thymus tap. So if all this talk about conflicts has made you less than balanced and happy, please do your thymus tap and lower your stress levels. It's a good way for everybody to just relax, figure out, oh, I don't deal with conflict. Conflict bothers me. I can't stand conflict. Do whatever you need to do, but remember, no more than 3 in a day, okay? Awesome.
I can do live videos. I can do live videos. I can do live videos.
You keep going till that one yawns. I didn't see that finish.
I can do videos. I can do live videos. I can do live videos. I can do live videos. Yes, I can.
There you go. Done. Awesome. All right. We will see you all tomorrow. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye now.